Hi guys, thank you so much for seeing me today. Paulina talking to you about the new moon in Libra on the 19th and the 20th of October. It is now the 17th and it was my birthday yesterday and I'm now 32 and I'm happy. It's really beautiful to be here. Thank you very much. And upon my solar return, I would like to state, if you've ever had the feeling like nothing was right in your life, take the last few weeks of your year, of your solar year, to do nothing, to do absolutely nothing, and nobody will bother you again. Seriously, it's crazy. Like, it's been an incredible 12th house karmic cleanse, and it's been very right for me to fast more and also not talk and not to have any sounds or any type of irritants in my space. And I've been trying to avoid people as much as possible for the last few weeks, and I've actually found that my heart is a lot deeper, and this is like a very, very serene and peaceful experience now, being in my solar return. And often I get very, very put off by things very, very quickly during this time. Like, something sways me and I'm kind of like, whoa, I sort of go with a different program because sometimes we Libras get offered new programs when we hit our solar return time. And this is like quite interesting to be, in a sense, malleable or like impeccable, or to be very still, because I don't have any more, how can I say, dharma to do, because I've chosen to sleep and I've chosen to meditate for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And it has been a complete mind reset. So definitely, if you've got a birthday coming up in a few weeks or soon, take the time to do nothing and just to celebrate almost like the ending before the beginning. Thank you very much for connecting. Let's talk to you about the new moon. This is not a great time to be sitting alone and thinking. It's actually a very, very interesting day, the 19th especially, to be productive and proactive. It's a very, very fun time. I know it sounds crazy, to just start looking towards something or looking forward, to sort of like make a mark on the map and then start shifting towards that. It's an incredible time not to sit still. And I know like what I've just said is completely contradictory to that. That's a general solar return thing. But this is the time to start walking towards something, even if it's like a very tiny step, even if you can say jog in one place for half an hour, even if you can start seeing where you'd like to be in the world or what you'd like to be. If you'd like to have a look at how you'd like to approach partnerships or memberships or any kind of social situations of any type. And if you would or would not like to do things different, it's an incredible time to start being proactive with yourself and start sort of like buzzing about what you'd like to do. It's an interesting time to create mini hypes. So not large hypes where you decide or design for yourself like a big thing, because sometimes if the thing is too big, we won't want to do it. So for instance, if you say in 10 years, I want to be like a tycoon or something, or I want to be like my own giant business, it's not going to happen. But for example, for instance, if you say there is something exciting about working on my own, there is something very tasty and very special about having no attachments, there is something very, very tasty and delicious about having absolutely nobody standing over me and telling me what to do, and you sort of like meditate on that feeling and you get very, very excited and almost like vulnerable about that feeling, done. So I'm seeing that there is a lot of situations here, because we've just had Jupiter for Libra and we have a lot of different things in the sky as well, suggesting to me that there is a lot of different opportunities for us to just basically start a giant, giant, giant snowball with a tiny snowflake. This is an incredible time to breathe more and to receive. It's an incredible time to receive. It's a very, very nice time of the year to say absolutely no to things as well. If you haven't yet completely said no, like I'm quite lucky, I've been sleeping and meditating for the last like 3 weeks, but if you haven't been doing that and you're not sure as to how to jumpstart your snowflake, that's okay. It's nice to breathe and to say no. If you're somebody who is in a chaotic story, so for example, if through Virgo and through Leo you haven't said what you wanted enough and you haven't stated yourself enough, during Libra you might have tag-alongs, you know, people that expect something from you, people that are crying, you know, people that are asking, people that are kind of situating themselves as if you are the problem solver. And if you are one of those people with these types of experiences, that's okay. It's a really, really beautiful time to basically consider how you can say no and to just say it fast. If you did say no, though, make sure that it is almost like documented. It's like got a very, very nice, strict, and almost an official demeanor without having to become too personal and too stuck on stories. So like, no, mom, I won't do that. Or like, no, babe, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or, yeah, guys, this is really nice. I've been playing in this band for a while, but we're not going anywhere. So considering how far I'd like to be and how far you guys are going, I don't think this is about me anymore. And it's more about you guys. So definitely having a look how you can basically cut off as much as possible leading up to the 19th especially, and not to create any more drama. So for example, the people that become very, very enamored with a story to the point where they can't let go of the story, and the story is more important than the outcome, or this friction is more like sexy than the actual experience, they have to learn to let go and to start looking at the seed, like at the husk and the grain, you know, the grain, not the husk. The story does sometimes create something new out of us. The story of self-worth, the story of deprivation, the story of realignment, the story of trauma, the story of whatever, but this is not a story time. This is not story time. This is the grain time. We are in the rooster year. At this point, the rooster basically goes, I know what's right. And there should be a definite knowing by now in all people, at least to some degree, where you are and where you truly know yourself and truly know the worth of the situation. What is the grain that you're going for? So instead of, for example, flicking through Instagram, flicking through Facebook, which is basically going through like a giant barrel of superficial stuff, it's more like, for example, I'm going on Facebook to see a friend on Facebook, you know, to talk to them and to make an appointment with them to see them, for example. This is a perfect thing as well for any addicts to social media. Or I'm going to go on Instagram to see like this girl's post because, for example, she's incredible at fashion, and I'm going to get some ideas and I'm going to do something myself that is along the lines of what she does. So it is having a function to the madness, the method to the madness, and a decision that is very, very clear. So if you are perhaps like me sometimes, who just scans through reality, just kind of floats through, it's really nice to start by the 19th to get a really good idea, but to start here in this window definitely to create a step towards that which you know is real, which you know spikes you up, and you know is going to be in alignment with your greater growth and success in the future. So, for example, you might have never seen it in yourself, you might have never done it, but this year has shown you that you're an incredible entrepreneur. Or perhaps in this year, you never really thought about it, but you actually saw that you are ready to have a house and a wife. You know, you might have seen that this year has shown you that for some reason you've got an incredible work ethic where everybody in your life has told you that you do not. Or you might have seen something else, like say you're really, really good with kids, or you're really, really incredible with animals. Something has come up this year perfectly, and by this time you already kind of see where you are and what you kind of streak is. What's the new streak, or the streak that's been there all the time, just have never noticed it. And this 19th and 20th new moon is an incredible time to know it, and just to say, okay, cool, so I'm really good with animals, and say I've been an entrepreneur for 20 odd years, but damn, I'm really good with horses. You know, I'm just really good at horses. Like with horses, I just feel them, and I've been living alongside horses, like say for 6 or 7 years, and I never really understood that this is actually my greatest passion in life. And this is a really nice time, not to say I want a ranch, you know, but to say like, I'm going to start making a little progress towards that. You know, I'm going to collect horse memorabilia, or like I'm going to try and start an appreciation group on Facebook or something like that. And then you become sort of like more interested in that, and perhaps in 10 years time or less, you know, 7, 8 years time, you might have your own farm where you rescue horses, you know, or you might have like a special retreat where you heal people through interaction with horses. So it's like a very, very tiny little grain that can become the biggest tree. But unless you know yourself, don't do it. And this is like a big thing here is if you haven't had any pattern in the algorithm in the last 3 or 4 years where you've been consecutively interested in something, consecutively mindful of something, consecutively thinking of something, if there is nothing in alignment that has been protruding over the last while, if there's no algorithm and there is nothing that you really find that interesting except for like yourself, like, you know, sitting on the couch, looking for magazines, if there is nothing that really spikes you yet, which is not a problem, you know, like if nothing really is a passion and everything's a duty, all things that are duty should already be on the surface. They already have been leveled by Libra. So for example, if in September, early September, late August, like even early August, seriously, like we've had plenty of time, there's been things that have been bugging you and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to do that anymore. There should have been a force within yourself to make that stop or to make that resolve somehow resolute. But if you haven't done that, that's okay. So for those of us who have never found the time to stand up for ourselves and to say no, we can start sort of seeing what is a yes instead of perhaps fixating on situations where we, for example, doing duties for somebody over and over. And unfortunately, also for many of us, if we haven't been able to shake a lot of the duties in September and August, by the middle of October, quite often you'll find that these kind of stick around for a very, very long time. So if you haven't been able to say no and you've even felt an accumulation of things, like things kind of vibrating with a lot of distrust if you don't do something, you're afraid that if you don't work the extra hours, you'll get undercut, or especially if there's fear involved, like if you're afraid if you don't give this person the type of response that they respect, that you're not going to get ahead with that person. Or these people, like if you have a fear of how you have contact in the world, if you have a fear of not being able to be yourself, and you know, sort of a fear if you don't compromise, you're gonna miss out, like that kind of fear. And if it's still there, and we're going through a huge freeing cycle of humankind at the moment, you know, if you're still there and you're really, really afraid of you not being nurtured by them, those people that hold the chains or that feel like they hold the chains in their hand, they're like power your shackles, you know what I mean? If you are really, really afraid of these bonds disintegrating and who you are without these shackles, there is a lot of distrust of self, and this needs to end. And I have, of course, experienced these types of things for a while, and they've completely been placed behind because I've given myself the incentive to do nothing for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been resolved. And there's a lot of things I feel that we carry on with us for a long time, not knowing that we are. And with this type of thing, if you are somebody who's really clad, you know, it's like the 17th, the 18th of October, and you still got this huge, like, it's like you're like Titan, you know, and you're carrying the world on your shoulders, that's not really good. But we can start saying no. And occasionally, with this type of system that we're under, it's not that hard to say no. It's just about being official about it. It's about almost having it on paper. If you're somebody who has a very, very hard time to tell somebody no and to make room, it's almost like clear the table for your own interests and your own ideas and your own desires. If you're somebody who can't say yes to yourself yet, that's a problem, but it is a very easy one to solve yet. Until about the 23rd. When we get to the 23rd, I feel it's a different vibration. But here, like, we have the opportunity, of course, because we've got Scorpio, and then 27th completely cuts it. So basically, we have an opportunity here to become more aware of where we're at with people, responsibilities, and we can have it easy. But when we have this portal sometimes, because it's a numbing energy with Libra, it's like a non-world, it's a numbing energy, it's a 7th house, it's the opposite of the first. It's not like so robust. It's kind of the numbing, the nulling energy. This is not a good time to, how can I say, disallow oneself to say no and disallow oneself to make executive decisions, because we might feel kind of in between worlds. So it's something that not many people I feel will take advantage of now. So this kind of force that comes through and says, well, actually, I do not like this, I do not like that, and I will never again do this. I will not talk to you every time like we're fighting. I will not reenact the story for you. If you don't want to say no, quite often these things continue and carry on. But the most important thing is not to take it personally on both ends. If somebody says no to you, or you say no to someone, and say, even if you say yes to someone, somebody says yes to you, don't, how can I say, fly off the handle and treat it a lot more than it is, because this is contract time. And for me, it's been a breaking of contracts that I feel deserved a lot more time in my life at the moment than the creation of these contracts. But by the 19th, there should be a creation or a making of new contracts. And on top of contracts that, because Libra, on top of contracts that you've had already, if you're trying to create a fresh contract that contradicts your whole life, that's not easy, that's harsh. This is karma contracts on planet Earth we're talking about. But if you, for example, make a stand and create a no energy more than a yes for now, before the 19th, you might actually find that things just flake off. And then by the 19th, it might just birth itself, if you're really unsure about who you are, as almost like a new strand of you, like a new shoot of you, a new seedling, that basically becomes almost like the rest of your life, or a big potent meaning. By the 23rd of October, I feel we're going to find it insatiable to do something, insatiable and feeling. There's going to be a lot more love, there's going to be a lot more interest, there's going to be a lot more almost like sexuality and resonance in these types of contracts. So however we've gone through contracts, or there's going to be aggression, however we've gone through these contracts, we've had this choice to let go of as much as possible, to accept as much as possible later. And the 19th, the 20th, the moon that is new, is the seeding of the best. And it is perhaps the seeding of the most enlightened type of contract with yourself yet. So don't shun it, and don't let it go. This is an interesting type of purpose formula that is coming, but also not just a purpose. It's almost like doing every day. So what you're going to commit to, or what you might dissolve yourself through. Dissolve yourself meaning dissolve the ego through. So what you might play, like what game you might play for, perhaps for some of us, the rest of our lives. And for many people, it's just like for a month or two before they find their feet elsewhere. So this is a nice, almost like lucky dip, lucky ticket, if we want it. But before the 19th, I'd suggest, if you're like me and you want to get totally, completely clean, fasting, sound fasting as well. Sound fasting, media fasting, different types of algorithm changes can happen if you don't eat for a while. You know, this is the 17th. I'm going to attempt not to eat till the 19th. Also, not watching TV, not looking at media, trying not, this is harsh, try not to think about people who you're in a pattern of thinking about. Because quite often, very likely that when you got a pattern of somebody coming to your mind, you got karma with this person or compatible karmic fractals. Not to think about people so much, not to entice yourself through drama and trauma, not to talk about the dark side of things, and not to try to lace your life with meaning, like depth, meaning. Sometimes Libra is hungry for that. It is really, really nice not to collaborate with people that don't create ease and comfortability, like people that kind of put you on edge, or almost like you feel like you're on the blade's edge with this person. It's not great. If you've got people in your family that you're like on edge with, it's time to move on. And it's a really nice time to either have more time alone in a park, or in a garden, or somewhere outside the house if there's a toxicity at home, or just to actually walk through and just say, I'm not going to come back for a while, like, before it makes sense, I'm not going to be here. So after it makes sense to all people here, after I come back perhaps again, there's going to be changes or something like that. There's going to be maybe somebody speaking out, or somebody spoken out before I've come in. So trusting things to take care of themselves without having to almost polish the same the same fork or the same spoon. It's like madness, doing the same thing over and over, expecting the same result. It's an interesting time to complete and not to connect to yourself any more work or any more ideals of self-worth, and especially not to think about people over and over that come into the mind this is difficult. This is very difficult for me, as I'm somebody who's quite people orientated. Sometimes I pick one or two people and I can't stop thinking about them. It's terrible. But understand that in this type of relationship you are, and they are the parasite. It's really nice if you are somebody who is still concerned about somebody, still obsessive and upset about something that's happened. Really nice time to just completely lay it low and to create a new contract. For example, because sometimes we've got to lift something off and put something down for Libra so the scales don't go like crazy tilting. So like, I will not think about this person for a while. It's like this, it's a mechanical time. You can kind of see the kind of esoteric, or the, how can I say, almost like cause and effect energy here, which is really easy to work with. So take advantage of it. So basically go, I won't think about this person anymore. I will replace my interest in this person with, for example, my ideas on esoteric cultures. And you say, I'm going to learn a little bit more about the esoteric world, because it's almost like you're trying to make the scales the same here. So when you come into the 19th, 20th, and you go into the 23rd and the 27th, you have like a really nice stilling feeling, like nothing can go wrong, because it's not so good to seed anything here when you're feeling like everything's flying all over the place. So there's got to be a nice, really nice level frontier here, especially with Jupiter gone through Libra. There should be a nice solid karmic understanding here for all of us, or on some level, or a karmic balancing. So it's really, really good to see, for example, I've been spending so much time with my children, but it's not quality time. I'm just yelling at them, like say I'm just angry all the time at me and at them. Great, okay, so take that out and say, I'm going to take myself further away, and I'm going to be less involved in who they are and be less controlling. Maybe I'm going to enter 2 or 3 people on my family line where they can influence the children, instead of me being the only sole controlling force in the upbringing of my kids. So it's like you're replacing yourself with something else, but there is no tilting of the scales. There's no freak out. You're still there, you're present in the room, but you're allowing another person to carry something that perhaps you can't, or giving another person responsibility, slight responsibility, that you then do not have to face. So sharing loads. It's interesting to, for example, if you notice you're an obsessive person with some kind of cycle, because we've got Scorpio in the sky, there might be a peak of wanting to be in control. There might be a peak, Jupiter and Scorpio, we've got Scorpio soon, is going to come next month especially, so, and by the end of October. So a peak of wanting to reconcile things, a peak of wanting to get in someone's face and tell them what you think, a peak of sexuality, a peak of, how can I say, nature and nurture to an extreme. We have it coming. And if you're already, perhaps like me, experiencing these bursts, like these gushes of Scorpio, it's a good chance to see how you can balance it out as well. So for example, suddenly like someone's sex drive goes up, and you go, okay, my sexual spectrum or my emotional spectrum is over the top, it's overbearing. How can I deal with this? So for example, instead of doing things that have like a very carnal edge, because it is not easy to, how can I say, shake reality in a positive direction if you have like too much force during this Libra time. Say, I'm going to start dancing. I'm going to work out, and I'm going to dance every day for the next 3 days, just to get myself balanced and the energy from my body flowing, without trying to expect something, without trying to accept something from another force, from a different person. So to lower my energetic intensity sexually, I'm going to invite more dance and movement in my life. And in other ways, for example, I'd like to sort out this story. Like, it's been in my mind, I'm going crazy, and I want this person to pay. Especially if you're saying, I want this person to pay for my trouble, or I would like this person to pay for what they've done to me. That's really, really karmic. So when you have something like that, it is a very, very nice time to say, okay, so for example, this person has, this has been coming up a lot, like touched me when I was a child, touched me when I was a child. And Scorpio is going to be all about that for some people for the next years. We've got Jupiter Scorpio, and we've got a lot of anger and frustration in October, late October and November, building up to the Scorpio edge. If something like that happened, it isn't going to be an easy time unless you can say, okay, this is fine, this has been, there are ways that I can work with it on my own. This is not about me controlling this person. This is not about this drama being the separation between all worlds. It's like a perfectly fine thing to do is not to, how can I say, overreact here and just say, I'm going to deal with it, I'm going to do it on my own. Because it's like an initiation time. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to see how it mended me and how it's connected me to greater stability, weirdly, and perhaps greater mind in a sense, and I'm going to find out how I'm going to have to become something else now. Use these components and use these types of experiences to create in me some kind of greater wisdom or some kind of greater place in the heart that I can help other people that have gone through it. And perhaps I will become a lot more mature through letting these people go instead of fixating, because if I'm fixating, I'm still 4 or 5 years old. You know, if I'm fixated in these stories, I'm still running around or running away from myself. I've got to find the stability and the maturity inside myself so that I could inspire other people to learn from that and to have a stronger base from where it's being ripped away from them. So anything that's happened in the early childhood can be resolved here by kind of understanding that a grounding force is applicable perhaps to some of us here. So people who really do not feel sound and who do not feel, how can I say, connected to the 3D reality through trauma and extreme experiences, we can find it here. It's a nice karmic time, and we've got to not look at the game of the seducer and the victim, you know, the game of the predator and the prey. If there has been an extreme case of something, and sometimes we can jeopardize ourselves over and over and over again in our lives because the predator-victim situation is there and it's not able to be, how can I say, transcended. So everything that we create out of ourselves later becomes almost a shadow of what we used to be. It's almost like we get broken, that we can't move on. The room's gone dark. So the best thing I feel about this type of thing, if you're somebody who's been through extreme trauma and nothing spikes you anymore, it's almost like there's a feeling like you could just lay back and become nothing, as I've been getting a lot lately as well. It's an interesting, incredible time to say to yourself, okay, this is still a part of myself. Like, say I'm 32 and I'm still thinking about it, or there is still a feeling of not getting the result or resolve that I need, and there's still like a feeling of walking towards those things over and over. When I'm here, this is not the way to go. And if I'm not able to be as a human, as say, for example, the ground has been broken up and taken out from beneath my feet when I was only 4 or 5 years old, this isn't easy to stand here. It's not easy to stand here, and it's not easy to structure. So, for example, if I create a project, I don't care if it falls because I'm no longer here, and I have never really perhaps understood it till now, because the root chakra forms before you're 7 years old, and if you do not feel tied to the world because of some kind of trauma or some kind of deep devastation cycle, Libra is the karmic balance. It's not so nice to start walking towards that and seeing it, like researching online, you know, having a look at your family, getting like really like toothy about things. It's much better to create the knowing of this happening as a certain type of cycle that you can use, you can utilize it. So for example, I've been through this, but it's been incredible because it's become an opening into psychology and parapsychology for me. It's become an opening into remote viewing for me. It's become opening towards energetic work, and the esoteric realm opened to me very, very, very quickly, and very, very, very infinitely because of this trauma. Except that I do not want to work within that energy anymore. I would like to help people structure themselves in strength. You know, so weirdly, it has been a strange gift. But at the same time, for example, I don't want to dwell on it anymore. And I'd like to give somebody else who's been through similar trauma or who is traumatizing another person, some kind of way out of the cycle. So perhaps by the 19th, this could be me. I'd like to help people conclude extreme trauma and to finish certain type of cycles here on Earth that are incredibly dense and very evil cycles, very, very bad ones. And perhaps for yourself too, there might be something that sort of pursues you and you sort of like opening your eyes to it now. And if you are somebody like me who's experienced extreme violence or extreme, how can I say, depth, you might find that by the 19th or the 20th, you might want to figure out how to give people strength, how to help other people get through it, instead of being somebody who lays in bed crying about it, or somebody who is trying to pursue things that are outside of their natural spectrum, or people that, you know, try to run away from themselves forever because they've never been home or they've never seen love, you know. So it's interesting to have a look at how you can become the feet or the ground or the earth for yourself, if you are somebody like me, and to figure out how by the 19th or 20th you can perhaps create it part of your mission or part of the point of view if it's been something that's been pursuing you for a long time. But if you're not somebody like me and helping people or resolving things for another has never really been a thing, and you're sort of like being stuck with it by yourself, you might see that it creates a new creative cycle. So for example, if you've been a person that's been humiliated or abused or had like really a lot of hardship from the hand of another person earlier in life or through your life, it might be an interesting window towards saying, okay, where did I go? So for example, I've been beaten up at home and I smoked a lot of pot as a child, and then I started meditating, seeing these visions, and then I wanted to draw. You suddenly might actually find by the 19th you want to get it out of you and become a visionary of sorts, or some kind of like a peaceful reminder of God or things beyond this type of thing. And you might find yourself wanting to create, for example, ceramics out of nothing, or wanting to create peaceful music out of nothing, and you're not sure where it's come from. And sometimes it is the abuse or the deprivation of self that creates some of the most surreal artwork and some of the most breaking edge. It's like breaking boundary art. So you might actually find that it's not about you anymore. It's not about you and this feeling of not wanting to be alive anymore. It's more about the creative aspect to what the shadow has given to you. So these are the two sides of karma, you know, the shadow and light, and how you're going to use it, you know, two sides of Libra. And the best and the most positive and optimistic side of the cycle, I feel, is new beginnings can come quickly here. And it's not about, how can I say, it's not about taking them for granted or taking them too personally or too seriously. Best things grow out of nothing. So what I mean is, if you don't push anything, and if you don't try to encumber yourself with with how can I say, suggestions of what you have to do. Like, you don't encumber yourself with thinking, I've got to do this, or I've got to be the first one in the world that does this, or I've got to be that person that breaks through. If you don't encumber yourself, it's much better. But it can also not last if you don't work on it. So this is the fine line and the edge. You've got to catch almost like the idea by the tail and play with it as if you would play with a child, or you play with a puppy. You know, you're in love with it. It's lovely. You're happy with it. And then you don't have to force it to do anything it doesn't want to do, or you don't want to do. But at the same time, you don't discourage it from expressing itself. So it is about finding this really neat and beautiful balance between the worlds and between doing and not doing. And I feel before we can truly do that, nothing is going to be created through worth. I mean, nothing is going to be designed well. I mean, if we're looking at this world in our minds and how we design our lives, it's kind of in patches. It's like a patchwork of eclectic things. And it's not going to be clean and clear until I feel we start seeing how we can be more peaceful and at the same time precious and loving of all elements of life. So this is not just about discontinuing karmic cycles. This is not just about discontinuing working too much for somebody else's cause. This is not about discontinuing slavery and doing what you love. This could be about a discontinuation of non-love and expectation, control, and force. It's more about creation and knowing the balance between right and wrong, connection and knowing how to force, but at the same time not to at all. So how to pull and to push, and how to do nothing, and how to be active and then passive at the same time. This is a really, really beautiful time to also learn the drums, you know, to learn to dance, to learn to have more meaningful sexual experience or sensual experience with your partner, knowing that edge between dream and drama, so that you don't overdo and underdo. So this is a really, really nice window to learn how to really hold the sticks when you drum. That's a perfect thing, because there needs to be force and dexterity, but at the same time there needs to be looseness as well. If you're a drummer, you might know what I'm talking about. So how to hold the drumsticks that you're playing with in a loose and a very powerful way at the same time. Also with relationships, how to achieve mastery within yourself through relationships of not holding on too much, but at the same time letting the person know that you love them, you care about them. This is it. So basically, nice window to have a good balance in your life. Thank you very much, and I hope you have enjoyed this little conversation about you and the new moon, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks. Bye.